Shehada joins us from Copenhagen. He's a visiting fellow with the European Council on Foreign Relations. Mohammed, welcome to the program. Yunus there talked about countries having to reset their relations with Israel because of its actions in Gaza. And he also used the word propaganda. I don't know which countries will fall for the Israeli propaganda that there is no famine in Gaza. It's absolutely 100% clear now. Independent observers have declared it.
Absolutely. Basically, with those countries, they will still maneuver as we see right now, with saying Gazans are starving instead of saying Israel is starving Gazans. And a European leader once explained to me the logic behind it very clearly. He said, if we use the passive voice, we use it deliberately, because naming Israel in the sentence would entail a legal responsibility to do something about it. And until now, all they focus on is basically headline grabbing gestures to save face. They're dealing with the catastrophe in Gaza, the genocide, as a crisis to manage, a PR issue, not a humanitarian catastrophe, a crime against humanity. There's never been a case of genocide in modern history and a case of a famine that is so well documented, so deliberate by design, and so well telegraphed in the intention. You have Israeli leaders from day one saying, we want to starve Gaza, we want to use food as a weapon of war, and starvation there is completely manufactured. But there's also been never a similar case where you have the gatekeepers of international law and world order being completely complicit, subsidizing the famine in Gaza, providing the money, the weapons, the impunity, the grants, etc. Basically, famines always mean abandonment. They mean failure, because there's multiple stages that precede a famine. You have malnourishment, hunger, starvation, etc. It's 4 different layers, and then you get to famine. So by the time you get there, it's too late. Humanity has already failed. In the case of Gaza, it's not failure. It is by design. Israel has been very clear that it wants to starve everyone in Gaza as part of its genocidal campaign. Famine is one of the cornerstones of genocide because of its latent, hidden impact on the population. It causes immense stunted growth to children. It causes muscular wasting. It causes meningitis, severe anemia, cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, and metabolic disorders. The damage is even passed down to generations. And studies would show that even after a year of someone who's been in a famine zone, receiving healthy food, receiving a medical intervention, they will still show signs of inflammation in the gut that would render them more susceptible to be readmitted to hospitals and more susceptible to death. And that is the latent damage that Israel is creating. The tip of the iceberg is what we see with the killing. The famine is there to finish the job, finish off the Gaza question.
Well, we know that Israel considers the United Nations to be anti-Semitic. It's completely frozen out the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. The politics of it is absolutely unimaginable, as you say, in terms of lack of action. So maybe it's more instructive to help the viewer understand the suffering by hearing the voices from Gaza. And we have some later in the program. But you, Mohammed, you're from the north of the enclave. What are people there, the people you love, the people you know, your friends, what are they telling you?
Well, Adnan, I think by now we have basically exceeded the limits of human speech on 2 levels. Number one, there are no words that would sufficiently describe what Gaza is going through. The UN started to describe it as apocalyptic catastrophe, post-apocalyptic fallout, wasteland, howling wilderness. And at some point they said there are no words to describe Gaza anymore, no words in the human dictionary. The second level is early on in the genocide, I would call family, colleagues, and friends, and they would express rage, despair, anger, fear, hope. And at some point they started to express wishes of death. Some were even expressing suicidal thoughts. Some were writing their wills and final testimonies and final messages to loved ones and friends. But that has already become completely meaningless and hollowed out by the sheer repetition of it. So now there's only silence. There are no words that I'm able to articulate when I talk to my family and friends in Gaza. Neither do they have any words to put together that would resonate anymore. Everything feels repetitive. Everything feels meaningless and hollow. My colleagues on the ground in Gaza are finding an exceeding difficulty in collecting testimonies because people basically don't see a value in it. They don't see any impact, no matter how much they lay bare and naked their deepest trauma, their deepest pain, and invite cameras to see their torture mark. their amputated limbs, their dead and hacked loved ones. It does not make a difference. But there's also the immense fear that was created after Israel's systematic assassination of the most prominent journalists in Gaza, that now basically you see more and more suppression of voices in Gaza, journalists being afraid to do their job, or even people on the ground being afraid to tell their loved ones outside what it's like out of fear of Israel's retribution. Because Israel established a clear equation. If you try to speak up, if you expose the atrocities that we are visiting on you, you will be murdered in no time and no one will care about it.
Mohammed, sorry, I'm pausing because in those 2 minutes, I think you've summed up the suffering in a way that anybody outside of Gaza would find almost impossible. It's so difficult to hear those words, but we really, really appreciate them.